it's the women's fault. Like it's our fault for
Ah,
not being developed in a way that would have been more entertaining if people let us off the fucking leash. But they didn't want to let us
wow.
off the leash. They wanted to control us, our image, and how we played. And it's still that way, really, to this day. And every so often, they find.
First of all, normally I always say this. I have all of the space and opportunity to kind of tell people about who you are, your bio, all of these wonderful things. But here on Winning Her Way, I allow my guests to do that so that you can tell your story your way. Okay. So with that being said, kind of give us like I guess a brief bio on you and who you are, what you've done, and then we're gonna hop into these questions.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me, and
Of course.
mucho gusto, everybody. I'm Dylan Gonzalez, aka the artist, the athlete, the activist, or just the deal. I pretty much have a very decorated background in the basketball and sports industry, as well as the music and entertainment industry. And then my activism is kind of just one of those purpose filled things that leads the way and connects me with all the people and places and spaces that I end up getting to work with and build out. But yeah, I mean, it's so funny, like going down memory lane, trying to just like educate people on who I am. Most days when people ask me, what do you do for a living? I just tell them, other than being like a professional athlete or recording artist, I just say I'm a full-time venture capitalist.
Awesome.
That's
That's
that.
amazing. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Well, we know that you have like you said, a very decorated background. You are very accomplished. So let's kind of go back, which I know you probably might not have gone this far back, but can you kind of share some highlights and challenges that you kind of faced in your basketball career when you went to University of Las Vegas, Nevada?
Ooh, man.
I have to hit you with it.
Like,
I knew you wasn't gonna be ready.
okay, so first, the hardest uphill battle that I think I came into at UNLV was just the times of number one, like transferring, because I had transferred from KU, from Rock Chalk Jayhawk, because that was actually my mother's alma mater. And oh no, went black. I'm like,
Did it
okay,
freeze?
there we go. We back, we
Okay.
back, we good. Okay, but yeah, so KU was my mother's alma mater. She did a lot of amazing things there herself. So pretty much just tried to pick up the torch and run with it and make it happen, but it wasn't a fit. So the transfer process was rough, rough, rough. And I think that a lot of that came from really just being the wave, like being so popular, being this face of like sports fusion and divine femininity that people hadn't really
Mm,
seen before in this space of basketball, because a lot of it really just wasn't permissible. And a lot of the
mm,
qualities of being a divine feminine woman were things that were kind of frowned upon or looked down upon when you were being a high level competitor and in a physical sport as well, which I know you already
yes.
know all about in the lane that you run in, girl. So it's that same
Yes.
kind of element that was happening at that time. So that plus being a twin just kind of made me this big anomaly. So there was a lot of attention that
Yep.
was just kind of on us like all at once. And I wasn't um, fully prepared for that. And I think it's really actually because of how everybody else responded to it. Like the
Mm,
misconceptions or the projections or things people would just assume, or even down to like little jealousies or coveting or rumors
wow.
or drama or whatever, just because there was just so much hype that was going on around us. And I got my hype man on right now, but it was more than just the hype, because we really like back it all up that was being hyped around, until I would say it just started getting to my head because of the politics. The
Mm,
politics in the system were so systematically discriminatory in so many
mm,
ways, and then plus being a guinea pig, being the first of your kind, for
yep.
people to essentially have to analyze and pick out all of the pros and cons of what it is you're doing for the next generation to ultimately get to learn from and live in the glory of, should you pick
Mm,
your, decisions
yeah.
wisely, taking that lane. So that was definitely some of the hardest stuff, the transition, getting kind of acclimated with the new culture, which was a lot less strict
Yep.
than at KU, um, and really just earning respect from everybody from the front office to the people that I went to battle with every night. It was
Mm.
rough. It was really rough.
Yeah, wow. You said a mouthful. So something
I
something
know,
we're gonna
right?
have to backtrack and talk about is something that you said, which I feel like it's starting to happen more. Definitely with the Shakaris and the more women that are kind of following FloJo's step as well. But what do you define feminine energy in sports as? Or define I'm sorry, divine feminine energy in women's sports.
All right. So I think that with every woman, there's a unique expression that comes with our divine feminine energy.
Yep.
So when it comes to like how we self-express, I associate my personal divine feminine energy with that like the culture associates and connotates femininity with, which is things
Mm,
like, you know, having my hair done, having my nails done, doing eyelashes, like doing glam, like
yep.
being a glam baller, is pretty much how I self express. Even though I've kind of in my professional space gone and geared a little into more of my like tomboy space, just because that's kind of
Hmm.
the energy that's come out of me just from like some of the rage that goes into the sports
Yep.
when I get to go let it all out. But so some of my tomboys started coming back out, but I would say for me that self expression is definitely glam, and that Hollywood effect a little bit. I would
Yep.
say where you see a woman who really embodies like just being a woman and wearing the things that people would call less than conservative to accentuate the curves or whatever.
Yep. Yeah.
Wearing the heels, getting sexy. So I think that for me is the divine feminine. There's been so
Mm.
many gorgeous, beautiful,
Yes.
divinely feminine women who have played sports like since the beginning of sports time. I would just say
Yes.
the difference here is that I got to be less conservative. I got to be a little more intense, and not because I was given permission by any authority. I was actually constantly getting in trouble for that shit. It was more so just
Which is
because,
crazy.
right. But it was more
Wow.
so just because I chose to like keep taking that step and taking that risk because I wasn't going to do anything else and be less than original and authentic to myself.
I love that. I love that. So with that being said, and this is completely off script, but this is a great conversation because I feel like it's kind of like a controversial topic sometimes. But do you think like one of the problems with women's sports is it not being enough like divine feminine energy in all sports?
Ooh.
I know. Look,
All
look, look, look.
right. So I'm
I'm
going to keep it
I'm just
real. Here's what I
asking.
think. Here's what I think. I think that a lot of people probably look at it as a like potential issue just because they want to fit women in a box so
Yep,
bad. Like they want
yep,
women to all fit in a box and to
yep,
just serve whatever it is that they desire. Like to
yep,
just fill them up with whatever it is that they're looking to get out of the experience of you,
yep,
as opposed to accepting and understanding like this is just who this is how they self-express,
yep,
and enjoy the skills and talents that comes from this divine entity.
yep.
But I think that in women's sports there's a lot of things that we just still, oh my gosh, I gotta turn my light off because it's gonna annoy the shit out of me. Anyway, because it's dying from
Okay,
our
gotcha.
little delays.
I know,
Anyways,
right?
so basically, yeah, I feel like where the problem lies is there is so much obscurity right
Mm,
now
yep,
in the space of women's sports that we're trying to find like this collective identity so that we can
Mm,
be a force to be reckoned with for real and get that respect and that coin
yep.
that we really deserve ultimately.
Yeah,
But when it comes down to it, we're kind of all on a little bit of different pages,
for
just
sure.
simply because of whatever it is that we think we're supposed to deliver as these
Mm,
entertainers. What
wow.
I believe is that the problem actually comes from like the higher authorities who are ultimately regulating and policying the game.
Mm,
That's where I think the problem comes from. Why?
yeah.
Because if people, women specifically,
Mhm.
if women were allowed and given the permission to do more with the game, then we would
Mm,
be more entertaining. We would probably have more fun. We would enjoy it more. It
yeah.
would be something more people would gravitate towards. Like one of the things I hated, like I grew up in a conservative place, which is also why I was like so wild on the internet at one point. Because I was like very sheltered, very forced to like be in this conservative nature and space that I was gawked at, but I was never again like respected or fully understood.
Mm,
I was
yeah.
always kind of objectified or just like treated in a, I guess I'll say, a dehumanized fashion, like
Mm,
an object or something.
of
So when
course.
I got to start being more conservative and started getting in trouble was probably, or lessons of, was probably around high school when I was hitting like my junior, senior year. And I remember I would be getting in trouble for the dumbest shit. Like for simply wearing undershirts under my jersey and being considered not being uniform, for shooting shots that were outside of range, for making moves that were
That's
considered
wild.
moves or whatever. Like they wanted us to be so conventional. They had such an iron fist on again the regulations and the policies of the game for what women
Mm,
are actually allowed to do. So we weren't even allowed to get fancy. We weren't allowed to
wow.
try to dunk it. We weren't allowed to fucking throw passes between our legs or behind the back or again do make crazy plays and do all this stuff. We weren't allowed to make the game more entertaining. And then
Yeah.
people want to freaking reverse the script and act like it's the women's fault. Like it's our fault for
Ah,
not being developed in a way that would have been more entertaining if people let us off the fucking leash. But they didn't want to let us
wow.
off the leash. They wanted to control us, our image, and how we played. And it's still that way, really, to this day. And every so often, they find their token, player that they go and they
Mhm.
take and they try to run PR with, so that they can get more tickets in the seats. And they're still giving them most of them away for free.
That's wild. And you know what? I have to agree with that because when I was talking to another, she's a WNBA player. She was talking about, and then the interesting thing is they blame women for the game not being entertaining, right? But like you said, if they're not allowed to dunk, they're not allowed to kind of do the game and play the game they want to, then how is it really their fault for it not being what they expect it to be? And then I guess too with the comparison, like they're expecting like I guess LeBron dunks and everything else. But what do you think? Okay, and I know we got to get to another topic, but this is like one of my favorite conversations. But
Crazy.
so what do you so then okay, what do you say to the people that are like, well, the game will move forward if women supported women?
I agree with
Do you
that.
believe that? You do? Okay, I agree with that as well.
And I think that, man, it's so tough because there's only so many people that really get it. And the people who really get it go through a different struggle.
Yes,
They go
yes.
through a different struggle. There are certain people that, just as it was written, got more of a privilege or a leverage to be able to put themselves in certain positions of success. And
Yep.
that's just the truth. Sometimes you were, it was some, what's it called, nepotism. Sometimes it simply had to do with the fact that, you had features or qualities or characteristics about you that conformed to an agenda. So it really just kind of depends. But ultimately, I find that when you go through a different kind of struggle, because every woman does, we are just born as second class citizens. That's just still
Yep.
how it is. We're working out of that still to this day in
Yep.
every way. But when it comes down to the sports aspect of things, I think that women in the sport, there's a toxic environment in the professional um, atmospheres
Yep.
of women's professional sports. There's a toxic environment because a lot of the time we are pitted against each other. And there's
Yep.
like literally no opportunities. The opportunities are so scarce that
Yeah.
the tensions and the emotions and everything's get high, and people's characters start coming out. And sometimes people's characters are like scary, really scary. And
Yeah.
this can also be in the front office too. Sometimes it's the coaches and these twisted people in positions of power. Sometimes it's not just on the players, it's a reflection of that authority again.
Yes.
But I
Yes.
think that right now we do a good job of Hollywood affecting it. And I think that
Mhm.
there are some people and there are some women who are genuinely authentic in their cause to push the movement. And then I
Yeah.
think other women are self serving and just trying to push themselves. So
Mm.
it
Hmm.
really just depends. And then again, there are people who are trying to find people to like get on their bandwagon as opposed to going out and trying to be like, well, where can I support?
Yes.
What's already like pre-existing? What can I show up? And so that's just what I've been trying to do. Like, yo, where can I show up? Where can I
Yeah.
be in real life? Where can we like make the connections that we need to make some shit happen? Because you go faster alone, sure, but you go further together. So what's up? You
Amen.
don't really know people's like characters and or intentions until you show up and do certain work with them. So that's
A
always been a
hundred
big thing
percent.
for
I love that. I love that. I love that. Hey, look, I could continue this conversation, but
me.
go to the
So
next
wrong with it.
subject because again, this is something that I'm very passionate about, especially the whole situation where, like you said, let's show up together, let's support each other, let's actually move women's sports forward together, and not where it's like, oh, crab in a bucket mentality. But that's a whole nother conversation.
Girl.
So so how has being an athlete kind of shaped you as a person? Not only just in music, but also entrepreneurship.
Oh man, being an athlete, I always say, like, even with my brand, the artist, the athlete, the activist, like the athlete is at the core for a reason. Because the core is really what like holds it all together. The core is really
Mm-hmm.
what has to be like the unbreakable part, like shield to
Yeah.
the rest of the body. And for me, being an athlete has really not only developed my physical endurance and just physicality and overall health and wellness, but my mental strength, my mental toughness as well. And it actually is what I attest to becoming a leader and knowing how to work on teams, knowing how to work with people. That's so important. When you're in the sports world, even if you're in individual sports, you got to deal with people all the time. So it
Yep.
ultimately teaches you how to work with people, how to be around different people. I'm somebody who actually has social anxiety, which a lot of people don't know.
Mm.
But I get social anxiety from being the center of attention. Like, I don't actually want to be the
Ah,
center of attention unless I want to be the center of attention. Like, unless I'm there,
100%.
like, yeah, and I'm in the mood and I'm mentally
Yeah.
prepared. But it's like when you go into every room and you're the freak, it can create a certain level of social
Mm.
anxiety, especially when people have little hidden agendas and will do
Mm.
whatever to try to like, get at you or whatever the hell. So there's been a certain social anxiety that I had that it made it difficult for me to develop certain leadership qualities because I did not
Wow.
care to have to be responsible for other people. I did not
Mm.
want to have to then also hold myself accountable to stay on top of
Wow.
these other people because as the leader, you have to be the pinnacle. You have to be, if
Mm.
you're going to be a bird, you got to be the bird that's at the top of the flock. You're at the front of the flock.
Yep.
Okay. You
Yep.
can't be at the back. Like, there's just no respect in that. That's absolutely like
Exactly.
not a leadership quality at all. And being a person who ultimately had to become the main provider, like I don't have a man that provides for me. I don't have a family that financially supports me. Like, I'm the main provider for my entire community and for everybody who's connected to me. And
Wow.
it was that strength and endurance again that was instilled in me through sports that let me know I could keep going, and just that grind and kind of the blueprint that sports lays out for you to teach you like how this works, how to get gratification, how to put in your time, how to do reps, how to do something over and over and over and over again until you get it right. All those little
Mm.
intangible things are really what you take with you in the long run, in the long scheme. And for me, Once a baller,
Wow.
always a baller. I don't plan on ever technically retiring from anything that I do. I just plan on evolving and redefining what shit's been, just like I've been doing.
Wow. Wow, that's beautiful. Once again, you said a mouthful. And you be saying so much, like my brain is
I'm a
like,
Sagittarius.
no, I love this though. I love this. Like, man. So with you going through what you said, right? So being the main provider, also having social anxiety, and just dealing with that. Do you feel that sports has been an outlet for that?
I'll put it like this. Informally, yes.
Okay.
Formally, eh.
Ah,
Formally meaning um structured sports. So sports that are structured,
mm,
sports that are governed,
yeah,
leagues and things like that. So in that world, no. Because
got you.
I guess since my history, happy Black History Month, everybody, even though it's really every day.
Happy Black History. Right, right.
but
Uh-huh,
you're not comfortable in an enslaved situation where the policies ultimately do just that. They steal from you, they take from you more than they
Oh,
provide and support and teach and develop you. They
yes.
steal from you. So
Mm,
that, like, from your name, your likeness, your image,
good.
your honestly, whatever, your intellectual properties, all of it, your physical abilities, your gifts, like you pour into this regime or these regimes
Yes.
that ultimately just steal everything from you. And by the time you're done, you're lucky to get a jacket and a trophy. You're lucky.
Mm,
You're lucky.
mm, 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 mm.
So it's like hilarious to me because I have so much respect for everything that people do out here. I
Yeah,
really do because I understand this life shit. So
yeah.
I have so much respect for it. I just don't put the same value behind certain things other people do because I have a completely different outlook and perspective. And I've had a very incompatible experience, to say the least.
Mm,
And I don't
mm,
think that a lot of people are able to even really articulate or admit that, perhaps even to
yeah,
themselves, simply because they want it so bad. And it just seems like this is the only way and the only avenue. So you have to force yourself to fit in the freaking Cinderella story. And sometimes
amen.
you don't fit, and nobody wants blisters out here, okay? You get stop
Uh,
infection. So who cares for all that? You might as well write your own story and see where things can go. And I've just been willing to take that leap. But it's not an
man,
easy one. It is like a blind leap. So that's why I say on the informal side, where it's like I get to be in control. It's like I got to take the pressures off of committing to any league by defining my own professional career. I got to go play
yes.
in all different types of leagues without even having to be in any binding situations because they were willing to work with me to be flexible
Mm,
with the other things in my life that I wanted to commit to or that I was
I
already
love
committed
that.
to, like touring and singing and designing and taking care of kids. So it's like
Yeah,
when you are somebody who has all this stuff, when you're in your divine, well, mind, feminine, when you're in your divine existence as a human being and you're in your wholeness, you juggle a lot. There's a
yes.
lot of roles that you have to play all the time, and you have to do
Mm,
it at like an elite level. You can't
yeah.
drop the bar anywhere, otherwise, everything gets
Mm,
fucked up in the whole world. So for me, I was like, how can I find a place that is going to be compatible with me and what I want to do outside of just this? Because I
yes.
love this so much, and it breaks my heart every time people try to accuse me of not loving the sport or not being committed to the sport because I didn't take some conventional path that everybody
Yeah,
expected me to. But I'm
yeah.
okay with people like not knowing what's going on. They can't do as much film or scouting on me, so I end up having
Hmm.
an advantage. But
I love that.
informally, I got to get back to it, just creating like a league with all these other leagues and letting it develop and marinate over the years and finding the love of the game again because I was always
Wow.
passionate about it, but I fell out of love with it for a minute just
Mm,
because of how it got beat out of me through the
mm,
conventionalism and again through being told like this is the position you have to play, this is what you have to do. I remember through most of my career I was always playing a position that wasn't actually natural to me in my position. I was
wow.
a slashing guard in high school who didn't really know how to shoot it like that. I was ambidextrous, so most of the time I didn't know what hand I shot with.
Mm,
Wasn't until my junior year that I became a legitimate shooting guard. But then there
Wow.
were so many shooting guards. There was such an abundance of shooting guards, and I'm a big guard because I'm 6 feet. Sometimes
Yeah.
a little like, well, sometimes 6'2" with my buns high enough. So, therefore, people wanted to move me in a different position, and I appreciate it now because I got to have so many different skills. But it was not fun. Like, it was not fun
Mhm.
being the person who should be, or when you see yourself as that person who's like just unselfishly, just in your own. These are my goals for myself as a on a personal level. When
Yep.
you see yourself in a certain way, and the people, your support system around you refuses to see the dream that you have for your own self, even if you have the skills and the academics to support what it is that you're trying to do, and you still don't get that support, that's a heartbreaking experience. It
For
makes you
sure.
start to have self-doubt. It makes you question yourself. And so then playing the sport will actually trigger those things. Just psychologically,
Mm.
you go back to that space and you get triggered and you
Yep.
feel like, oh, and sometimes even when I have competed in different leagues and things like that, I will still sometimes get a little bit triggered. Like I have to shake off kind of this like mental lock or lapse that I get into because I get
Yeah.
so in my head, I start thinking like, how am I supposed to play? As opposed to just
Mm. That
just
wow.
play, just have fun. So I
Wow.
had to get out of all the structure to just have fun again
Mhm.
and find what basketball was to me, what made it fun. And really, I found that through street balling because there was no
Mm.
rules.
I'm about to say you can do
Yeah,
whatever
so
you
I
want.
became a street baller. That was another one
Wow.
that I was like, well, let me go see what they got over here because they got the sauce for sure, and I'm all about it.
A hundred
What we
percent, man.
on?
Wow. That's
That Chick-fil-A.
nah. So like, so what you're saying, like that resonates with me deeply because I feel like I had to also find my own path in sports because I ran track in college, and I didn't have the best experience because of coaching and then wanting you to be this one thing and me wanting to do all things. And that I lost my love of track and field. And then, I ended up finding the love for football. But in football, a lot of people don't know still about women's football. It's still not really a respected league or sport at all. And
Right.
so when I started doing all these things, like being the first female athlete to own a shoe company, and then getting offered the largest contract in women's football, there was a lot of hate. There was a lot of angry people. There was a lot of people that just didn't understand. But I learned from track and field, and also playing women's tackle football for a little while, that if you don't use the sport, it's gonna use you. And so, like, I learned how to build a brand, how to make money from it without getting a contract because unfortunately, in women's football, there is no contracts, there's really no pay. And
Right.
I literally built myself from the ground up because I realized, like, if you don't do this, you're gonna look at life at the end of this, your career with football, and say, man, I didn't get nothing out of it but injuries, possible concussions and other things like that. And unfortunately, there's so many things like this in women's sports, period, that if you're not becoming more than just what that sport that you play, your career is gonna end, and you're gonna have nothing.
Oh,
And
you're gonna be
so
struggling
I'll be struggling
bad.
a lot, a lot. And so for me, like that's something that, and I love to hear what you just said because I push athletes like, yes, I get it, love the sport that you're in, go out there and kill it. But what the hell do you want to do when this is done? Because you need to be working on that because that is what's going to help you from having a mental breakdown when it's over with. And that's also going to be something that you can leave behind for your children and your family, right? So hearing you say that you had to kind of make your own path and you weren't comfortable in the conventional, like in a box, this is the structured way of doing things, that is something that I feel like all female athletes need to hear. Like, it's not to say that you don't go out and follow the rules so that you can play or whatever level you play, but when you're off that court, off that track, off the whatever it may be, what are you doing to separate yourself? Right?
Hmm.
What are you doing to be uniquely you? Because it is what it is. Like in sports, you do have to conform to whatever degree if you want to play on a team. But what are you doing to save your mental health from having to be this structured little thing in a box all the time? And how are you fulfilling yourself? Right? Like how are you fulfilling yourself? How are you? It's so many levels to this. But
It
I love what
really
you're saying. I love what you're saying. Um, Man, I got like 20 questions for you, but we're talking so much. Because I
It's
know you got to
cool.
go. I'm gonna give you a few. I'm gonna give you a few more that I personally just want to ask you.
All right.
Um, so I you kind of touched on, the social anxiety, which goes into mental health pretty much. And I know you told me that since sports is kind of like an outlet, but it's not all the way an outlet. How, like, what do you do to protect your mental health, right? Like, what steps, what outlets, what things are you doing? I know music, of course, has to be a big outlet for you because you get to truly be authentically you, uniquely you, and you get to really express yourself through lyrics. Um, how did you get into music, right? Like, first of all, that was a two in one. So how do you protect your mental health, and then how did you get into music because that's unique?
Thank you, man. All right. So, how do I protect my mental health? And then, how do I get into music? What great question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, before I answer those, there's one thing I do want to say because you made such great points, which is the last statement that you made, last sentiments you made. And I was just thinking to myself, like, if I could say something to everybody that's a part of this generation out here that's either a sports enthusiast or that's a professional or actively trying to get into that professional space, is really just like hold your vision.
Mm,
Hold your vision for whatever it is that you see like yourself as in your best light and in the epitome of your potential as and
mm,
whatever your passion or craft is, because
yeah.
ultimately it's going to come down to you just believing that it's possible, and then that's what will align you with making the decisions that you need to make to support that. And your emotional
Mm,
intelligence will let you know, like, and so will the mirror, like, am I on
yeah.
track or am I off track? Am I
Yep.
making the right decisions or am I falling into an abyss that I don't want to keep going down? And
Mm,
mostly that's just the mental game. That's just that
yeah.
mental side of it. So that's why I say just hold your vision. Because for me,
I love that.
just real talk, the WNBA was like just never a vision. I wanted it to be. I wanted it to
Mm,
be my calling because again, that's what
yeah.
everybody's like. This is what you have to do. This is what's going to
That's
validate
the
you.
next thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like I wanted that because I thought, okay, yeah, this is what I have to do next. Then when I
Yep.
got it, when I got in, I was like, I turned it down right away. I was like, nah,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I saw what I was going to have to ultimately really sign up for, and that I wasn't
Mm,
ultimately going to get out of it what I was going to sign up for. It wasn't worth it to me. But I held my
yeah.
vision still. I didn't
I
let
love
that
that.
stop me from going after who I wanted to ultimately be. So even for those people who are like, well, I want to be in the league. Well, I want to be, that's awesome. Like, I don't think that's a bad thing. It's like,
Yeah.
how are you going to come and make your impact? How are you
Yes.
going to do your thing and be diligent about figuring out what it is you're really signing up for. So you can know
Exactly.
if it's compatible with you, if you have chemistry in this space, and there's a real connection that's going to keep you going in it. Like
Mm,
with all the people around you, is there a real connection there?
yeah. Yeah.
So
I love that.
hold that vision, y'all. But
I
back
love
to the
that.
question. So the first one was crap. I just went straight to music. What was the first question again?
Also, I was saying, how do you protect your mental health?
That's right. So, how do I protect my mental health? Okay, so the first thing that comes to mind for me is like I spend a lot of time alone. I spend a lot of
Mm,
time to myself. I spend a lot of time isolated, and it's simply because I'm very sensitive to like energies and people and influences around me, and I had to build up my mental toughness and my boundaries and my walls and all these different things just to get comfortable like being outside in these new times, and again being a public figure and all these different things.
yeah.
Like, it's still something that I'm finding my ebb and flow with, to be fair, because it's a safety thing for me. It's like, and a
100%.
privacy thing. So sometimes it's like, damn, like there's just people everywhere lurking all over the place, and that will like drive you crazy. So
100%.
I would say spending time with myself to really get to know myself. Meditation has been a huge thing for me. That's helped to like ground me and help me do the self-reflective work I need to do. Journaling and
Yeah.
like kind of keeping like my little personal vlogs and things like that to reflect on really my life. And I think that during those times of like aloneness, of getting to meditate, of journaling, of writing, of pouring into myself in that way, it's during those times where I do get to almost watch my life like film, like if you
Mm-hmm.
were, in sports, and I get to really register, okay, how does this make me feel? How does it still make me feel? Or where do I go from here? And just giving myself that time, slowing things down. I think that's a big key as well, since we live in such a generation of instant gratification. Everything
Yep.
always has to happen like this. What's next? What's
Yep.
coming up? What's this? What's that? And it's like the quality of things is just going down so rapidly because the
Man.
amount of time that people aren't willing to put into something, especially
Yeah.
because we keep getting told, like, the more time something takes, or the longer you're doing something, and if it doesn't look a certain way by then, is like invaluable,
Yep.
or is lesser than, or you become ultimately just I don't even know, like nothingness in your
Yeah.
lifetime if you spend a lot of time on something and don't have something to show for it based on society's standards. So I feel like because of that reason, there's been such a level of quality taken away just from really everything in life,
Mm.
especially that's like popular right now. We're
Yeah.
seeing stuff that, in my personal taste, and on Dylan's palette,
Oh, I
it's
feel
cool.
you.
It's cool. It's like junk food. I know that sounds like shade, but no shade. It's like I love junk food. I love junk food. Junk food is
Yeah.
amazing,
Yeah.
but it really ain't gonna do it for you. Especially if
Yeah.
we're talking like all the layers and all the levels to the devils. It's not gonna really do it for you, other than give you that instant gratification and
Yeah.
satisfaction on your palate and whatever else. And especially if you're an athlete, you got to be balanced. You got to be very balanced
100%.
with that. So a lot of the things that the culture has provided today, I say I have a healthy balance with. Like there's some stuff I'm like, yeah, this is really dope, this is really lit. But the overall collective consensus, like I really don't contribute too much to pop culture today. I don't keep up too much unless I'm like, okay, let me educate myself to see what's going on. What am I missing? What
Yep.
have I missed being on a hiatus for 3 months? Like I'll go and I'll tap in
Mm.
and I'll check it out and I'll be like, oh, and I'll just kind of see what's up and I get
Hand it back
motivated in
out.
my music space. And with,
Yeah.
that also has been definitely a huge just support and vessel for me, for sure, has been the music. That's also why I actually haven't put it out. And a lot of people are like going, Dylan, like I can't tell you how harassed I get about putting music out. But and I want to deliver on that. So I plan on doing it this year. There is going to be music out this year, everybody. Hallelujah. Finally.
Okay.
Just
Okay. We
like
looking
getting
forward
out
to
here on
it.
YouTube, on here for the first time in 3 years. Let's go. It's happening.
Yeah. Look, we excited.
Yeah, I'm here, but I started getting into music. Oh man, like when I was a babe, to be honest, I can remember the first song I ever like remixed slash wrote was actually in kindergarten. I kid you not.
Oh
And it was
wow.
so mature. I think I've always kind of had that old soul to me. Because the
Mm.
song, I didn't realize it at the time. Because as a kid, you're just ignorant. You don't know what you don't know. You
Right.
don't have a scale or a measurement for things. So I didn't realize I had made like this advanced level song. It just like came to me. It was kind of like that, the gift, like something like God just
Mm.
whispered into my soul. I could just hear it, and I was like, yeah. And that's kind of how
Wow.
it's always been. I kind of have a lot of divine communication with God when He puts these like songs and these words on my heart and
I love
soul, and
that.
I just kind of like freestyle them out. But yeah, it was actually a remix of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and
Wow.
I had my sister and my best friend in kindergarten at the time, and we were really obsessed with like rock bands, like
Mm.
Josie and the Pussycats, actually, to be very
Oh
specific,
wow.
and
Okay.
Charlie's Angels. So little
Ah,
Michael
okay.
Jackson in there as well, if anyone tried it. But we were like out on the playground just singing, and we were singing the Josie and the Pussycat songs, and wow, it sounds so interesting to say now. But we were singing their songs, and I was like, let's sing our own songs. So I just started, making up little jingles and things like that here and there. And it just became a
Wow.
thing. But it was always discouraged. like having a path
Mm,
or finding my voice in music, like where I came from, just in a predominantly Christian background and a family that had a little bit more of the conservative path as far as career choices as well, like what they
mm,
defined as a real job,
mm.
and what they were willing to respect versus like what they wouldn't acknowledge or take seriously or support.
Wow.
And yeah, I understand it, even though like
Yeah.
I don't agree with it, obviously, but that's because I guess I'm on this side of the fence. But I
Yeah.
understand it because it's like, okay, I get it. Like this is capitalism. Like you
Yeah.
want me to do things your way so that I can
Yeah.
ultimately provide for you in your older age.
Mm.
Got it. But at the
Girl.
end of the day, it was like, okay, but do you see me? Do you hear me? Do you know who I am? And music allowed me to be all that I was. Like
Yeah.
basketball, I was only allowed to be this version of
That.
Dylan. In school, I was only allowed to be this version of Dylan. When it came to the music, when it came to the art, because it was really poetry that got me like in my pens and in my bag with music for real.
Yeah.
And it was that space that allowed me to be all of who I was all the time, like
Mm.
unapologetically, even though I had to find communities that were able to have those kind of conversations or listen into the crypticness of my words or whatever, understanding the metaphors, finding an audience that ultimately was able to understand and comprehend my art
Yeah.
was kind of the first space that I dived into. Like kind of back in the day, I'd created this poetry page and things like that, and that's kind of where things started getting just leaked out into the public. And I was
Mm.
attempting to drop music in college, but I wasn't allowed, so I couldn't like
Wow.
promote it or anything. I had to sneak. I had to like pretty much, what do they call it? Like leak. I had to like leak my own shit,
Wow.
just because I was it since my name or face or whatever was on it, and
Mm.
considered promoting a commercial establishment or product, and that was against the law.
Really? That's
I'm
crazy.
telling you, they just made up rules for whatever shit I did.
Uh,
Like they would
I was
just be
gonna
like,
say,
"And here's
like,
how
but
this
it's
falls into section 2.5." Because even when
but
I
that's
would
your
just
music.
post,
That doesn't make sense.
but they owned my name. They were like, "Well, maybe if
Uh,
you want to like change your name," and I was like, "No."
that's
But
wild.
even if I did that, it would always come back to Dylan Gonzalez because
Oh, for
I'm
sure.
Dylan Gonzalez. So no matter what, they always found a loophole for like getting me in violations and having all these damn sanctions against me. And I'm telling you, like other people could do things I just couldn't do. Like even
That's
if it was
crazy.
like posting, I use this example all the time. If I posted this, right? And I was just like, geez, and I was like, hey everybody, isn't this sweater that my friend and colleague made for me so dope? I would lose my eligibility just for that. Just for
Wow.
tagging like you or whoever made it and being like I would get, but it was because I had a platform.
I was gonna say,
Everybody, and so it was considered like, like selling it or whatever. But I watched so many other student athletes, even within my own team, do that shit. But because they only had
wow.
like 200 followers or maybe a couple thousand at the most, the NCAA didn't give a fuck. They
They were
never
scared
lost
you
their
was gonna make money.
eligibility.
That's what it was. You was gonna make money, and they were gonna be able to get a percentage of it.
Bruh, and I
That's
didn't
what
even
it
make
was.
any money. It was all about control. It was about teaching me and the rest of the culture a lesson of like,
Mm,
here's how we're gonna handle this type of shit. So for
that's
those of you who
wild.
think you're something, and for those of you who are coming into something, just know that we still run you, we still own you, and whatever it is that we say ultimately goes, regardless
That's
of whatever
wild.
those rules say. So
Mm,
unless you want to go spend money that you don't have to get a lawyer, have fun with that. Have fun
that's
with fighting
crazy. You're
us.
right though. You're right though, man. Wow. So you literally had to. You had to fight for everything. You had to fight for your
Oh
right
yeah.
to release your music, to do your music, to share your music. You didn't have a support system back when you were younger, so you weren't able to really like fall into it the way that I'm sure you wanted to. So that
Right.
that
I didn't have
that
any guidance. Like I had to be the guide. I had to let God literally guide me so very directly. And that's why I say my faith, my relationship with Christ was really strengthened just in my over the course of my 20s and my adult life, and
wow.
being like in that post college professional world, because I just Man, everything that could come at somebody, I have ultimately encountered on some level, even if it was just 6 degrees of separation.
Wow.
And there was so much that I had to figure out like really quickly, like this all the time. Just again, as
Yeah.
a result of the times and the situation, my back was always against the wall. And I never had, again, like a system or a team or a structure or anything like that at that time to really help me or again give me those guidance, give me those cues, help me understand how to do anything. Even in music, I had to go out and do the same very thing when I got my deal with Universal Music Group. I was hustling. I was doing it the old school way. I was like on
Wow.
the street giving my mixtapes out. I was performing at whatever I could get booked at to perform just to get my
Name out
experience
there.
and my practice up and on and stay on point with everything and develop my
Wow.
identity. And a lot of the things I don't post because, like, to be honest, the Instagram and the internet space is like a whole different like life. Like here and there,
Man.
I'll like maybe all this time later post some shit that I was like, oh, I never posted this, or oh, I never put this up, or whatever, just because I do know that I have an audience that I ultimately want to cater to,
Yep.
within reason, but that I
Yep.
ultimately want to cater to because I love and appreciate the support so much. I don't really like fans. Can't stand
Yeah.
fucking fans. Fans to me are just haters in disguise. But when you
Mm.
have somebody when you have people who really support you, like
Yeah.
I've been, my platform has like stayed consistent through all the crazy shit. I'm not new to like having a million followers. I think a lot of people think, oh, she just like bought these and came up in a way. No,
That's
I
crazy.
had a community of people that all gravitated toward me at one time and just held me down ever since.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
so grateful for that. I mean, even back then, I had a more popping platform than even most of the men today. So,
Right.
like, think about that.
Still do. You
Imagine
still
how
do.
much money I could have banked up with had we been given the permission. I had a bigger platform, and still to this day have a bigger platform than a lot of the men
You do.
today who had
You
money
do.
actually poured into them for this shit, who got to have all the
But that's
opportunities
what
to
make your
do
story so
whatever.
unique. You got
Hey,
it out the
that's
mud.
so true.
You
I,
got it
I
out the
wouldn't have it
mud.
any other way, to be fair, like just in retrospect of it all, just
Yeah.
because, yeah, like I wouldn't become who I did today. The
Mhm.
revelations and the ideas and everything that God ultimately showed me through
Yep.
these times and through these trials and tribulations wouldn't have happened. And those things are the things that I value. Those are the things that I find my purpose within, and that I get to continue to have the privilege of executing here in life. That's why I'm really excited about this music that I'm about to drop this year, because it's really going to tell that story. And everybody's like,
Mm.
where is it at? What's been going on? And there's been so much music I've written. After I left Universal Music Group, that was a whole other crazy story. I left
Mm.
Universal Music Group. I went back to doing things on my own. I got to dance with the devil a little bit. It was like, yeah, cool, I'm off that.
Mhm.
And now I pretty much just been keeping everything on reserve, just in an effort to one, do things in an original way. I wasn't trying to like hold everything and gatekeep my shit, but the world and the circumstances just unfolded that way. Like I was
Yeah.
doing everything I could on it. I'm an independent artist, so everything I do
Mm.
is backed by this right here. So it's like when I'm pushing and doing all this stuff, trying to connect all these dots, get all these people on the same page, sometimes it just didn't happen. Like the music industry is a very like messy and petty
That's
and
crazy.
competitive space to be in. So it's like
Yeah.
there's not a whole lot of stability or reliability in that lane. And I got met with
Yeah.
it, kept it pushing, still keep it pushing. And
Yeah.
whatever's meant to be, I know will ultimately be in the grand scheme of things. And thankfully for me, I
100%.
learned how to walk away with whatever I needed to walk away with in order
Man,
to
look,
keep my story going.
in God's perfect timing. That's all I'm gonna say. In God's perfect timing. When God, no matter where you think you're supposed to be and how you're supposed to get there, when He is ready for you to get there and grasp whatever it is He's trying to give you, you will get there. And it's
Exactly.
not gonna be anything that you gotta figure out, you gotta go find, you gotta hustle for, whatever. It's going to just happen. And because you're being obedient and you're walking, and you're not being distracted by what everybody else in the world got to say, it's going to happen for you a lot faster than you think. And I'm telling you, Dylan, this is going to be your year.
It's the
Okay.
year of faith.
I'm
Okay.
saying, look, this is going to be your year. I feel it. I feel it. I feel it in my
Thank you.
bones. So
Wow.
I'm
That's such
excited to see you. Yes, I'm excited. I'm excited to see you blossom into this amazing music artist that you're going to be, entrepreneur, continue your athletic endeavors, all of that. You, your story is very inspirational. Your story is one that everybody needs to hear. Every little girl needs to hear, because there are so many young girls that don't have the support as well. They don't have the people in their ear telling them that they can do it. They don't have, somebody guiding them and leading them throughout this life. And as women, we do experience things differently. We do have different hurdles, different obstacles, than our male counterparts. So the fact that you were able to overcome that, still stick to yourself and be who you are without changing and having to sacrifice that so that you can get these riches and get these opportunities, that says a lot about you. And that says a lot about where God is going to carry you. So continue being the light that you are. Um,
blessings received and
yeah,
reciprocated.
I'm super impressed. But look, last thing, because we're gonna have a little bit of fun. Um,
So,
so we're gonna do a little segment, okay? Because I talked to you about some pretty deep subjects, right? So let's have fun. So I do this little segment. First of all, you said you're single, right?
yeah, I'm technically single. I mean, I don't see a ring on this finger, so
Okay, so we just gonna say you single then. Okay. So I do this little segment called intentional dating. So pretty much I'm gonna ask you some questions about your dating life. Yeah, and just keep it light. So the
it's like
first question I
bachelorette.
got for you, exactly. So the first question I got for you is, what is your ideal partner? What does that partner feel like, look like, energy, all of that?
Ooh, ooh, ooh. All right, so I have to say this. Doo-doo-doo. I have a type.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a type when it comes to like my attraction,
Mhm.
and I'm attracted to my likeness. I don't think that
Mm.
a lot of people would admit that, like about their
Yep.
own self, especially when you're this sexy. Um,
You silly.
but but no, I'm attracted to my likeness. Like, and my likeness comes with more than just my physicality. It's an energy, and my physicality comes from a level of work that I put in. So it's like
Mm,
when I see that in somebody else, I'm attracted to that. Like I know, like,
got it.
okay, yeah, damn, like you're on your shit, you do your thing. Well, me, I'm a sapiosexual. I'm also a
Mm,
demisexual, which basically means I'm attracted to intellect. So it's like if you can't hold conversations with me, or there isn't something mentally stimulating about you,
okay.
there's going to be a disconnect for me, and I'm not going to be with it.
Mm,
And then
okay.
also, I would say that what demisexual is like, I need that emotional connection. Like, I need to see like
Mm,
how emotionally compatible we are. Like, are you on the scale of like narcissism on the ego scale, or
mm,
are you more of a compassionate, empathetic individual who's
yep.
connected in a healthy capacity with your emotional intelligence? Those are huge things for me. Obviously,
Mm,
somebody who like has and somebody who thinks for themselves, which kind of goes in that, I
got
guess,
it.
affluent lane, but someone who thinks for themselves, somebody who loves and respects themselves, and also knows how to love and respect a woman. I think that
Mm,
sometimes, especially today, like men just want to be catered to a lot, and I understand because there's a lot of demand on men still. So it's like
yep.
they just want the person that I'm dating now. He's probably like, why did you say me? But the person that I'm dating now, I would say that he actually does fall into all these categories. In case he is watching this, um, but the person that I'm dating now, he does such a great job of like having his own level of self-awareness,
Mhm.
and but also still having an awareness of like me as a woman in the world as
Mm,
well, which I
I love
think
that.
which is important, especially in the stages of like getting to know each other and trying to
Yep.
create a certain foundation. Self-awareness is huge. Like self-awareness is like If
Very
you don't
big.
know yourself, how can you love yourself, and how can you love somebody
Exactly.
else? Okay, so
Mm,
it can get a little scary out here on the dating scene for sure when you're dealing with a lot of people who may not know themselves or who may have ego problems. So for
yep.
me, having to psychoanalyze people has definitely been a thing, as
Mm,
well as hoping that people are capable of psychoanalyzing me a bit, so that what's
right.
understood doesn't always have to be fucking explained, and we can
That part.
keep it
That
pushing.
part. That part.
But I don't
I
know.
love it.
I like being poured into. I got trust
Hmm.
issues. So it's like I love to be poured into. I love people to be vulnerable with me. I try to kind of move at their pace. Like that's how I try to do the tango. A lot of like in the sexual space, I try to set the tone. I like to set the tone unless here and there I kind of just like I'm like, okay, let's see what you got going on. But for the most part I
Hmm.
set the tone because I'm chaste. So I've been, which is basically saving myself for marriage. And I've been on
Oh,
that
I
journey.
love that.
And so let's see, I technically started celibacy in 20 at the end of 2018 after my last like relationship just went pew. And
Mm,
I tried to circle the block again with the relationship in like 2020, and it was still just like, yeah. And
not
at
it.
that point, I just needed like to take my power back and just like redefine myself. And so for me, that was like no longer something that was on the table for me, like even for dating, because I
Mm,
was like, well, we can have fun in other ways, but also it just took so much from me. And it
yep.
made me become somebody that I didn't like, especially if somebody had me fucked up. Okay, I'm probably going to jail. And I was like, I can't keep affording to put myself in this position.
Not going to jail.
I'm becoming psychotic. Okay.
Right,
Because the
right,
seed
right.
is
I,
there,
I
dude.
feel
Don't
you.
water it. Don't water it.
Please don't water it.
Don't make me have to show you a side of me that you don't want to see. And I
Right,
feel like
right.
most people can pretty much relate to that on some kind of capacity. Like when you give,
100%.
when someone takes like a piece of your soul in some way, and that exchange, that physical exchange, to me and my spiritual, I guess religious in a sense, partialities, like that is a soul exchange. You are like, I'm letting
Okay.
somebody into my kingdom of heaven. You know,
Amen.
so like you better be holier than thou. And for me, that comes with a certain arrangement, that comes with a
Yeah,
certain level of commitment. Like, are
yeah.
you willing to sign up for this forever?
Yep,
Forever. Which
yep.
if you in my world, that's like, oh, this sounds so fun. Cause in my world, I see everything so colorfully. And I'm not like some super stiff individual. I'm a free spirit. You know, I'm a
Yeah.
free spirit who loves just life and what it has to offer. So I'm a trisexual, which kind of means like this is a new thing. So hey, if people start saying trisexual, just know
It came from
probably
you.
heard it over here. Not a bisexual, I'm a trisexual. And essentially for me it's like just kind of a funny way of saying like I'll try anything at least once and see if
Got
I like
you.
it. But the thing is like here's where people sometimes get me misunderstood. I sometimes only have to think about it. And that's my try. And if I think about it and I don't like it, it doesn't align with me right, I'm like, that makes me
You're like,
uncomfortable when I
nah.
visualize myself doing this.
You're like,
So
I'm out. I'm good. I'm good off that.
that was
I
the
feel
try.
you.
Sorry.
I feel you. Exactly. I feel you. I feel you. I like that. Trisexual. Okay.
Yeah,
That's a
you
new one.
know.
That's a new one. I might gotta sit. No, I'm playing. I ain't gonna do
Yeah, you know, you
it.
gotta do what you gotta do.
Right, right,
Try a
right.
little
Okay.
trisexual action.
I love that. Okay, so we get that. So we get that it's emotional, it's mental, and
Mhm.
it's at your pace, right? And you try to go at their pace
Yeah.
as well. But
Yeah.
when it comes to the sexual part, it's your world. So I love that.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so what does when you hear intentional dating, what does that mean to you?
Intentional dating is knowing exactly what you're trying to get out of it. I
Mm,
think that a lot of people are still in the phase of trying to get to know themselves. So when
mm,
they're dating casually, they're essentially in an experimental place where they're still learning about themselves through other people.
yeah.
When
Mm,
you're
deep.
intentionally dating, I feel like you have figured yourself out to a certain level to know what it is that you really want to build on towards the future. And you're going to have the intention to find somebody that is compatible with that direction, with that life's direction.
Mm, I love that. Wow.
So for
That's a
me, like,
great
I'll be like, look, I'm serious right now. Again,
Yeah.
the person I'm dating now is like, listen, we can like, take our time and get to know each other, but like don't be messing around about doing this whole casual thing or having me
Hmm.
in a mad third
Weird
party situation.
situations.
Just let a
Yeah.
motherfucker know.
Right.
Don't just
Right.
have me out here like
You
looking
do.
stupid when I'm telling you, hey,
This is what I
I'm
want.
I'm taking this very seriously. So
Yep.
what's up? And I feel like sometimes that can be hard too. That's why it's also important in intentional dating to have effective communication.
Yeah.
You
Girl.
have to be able to effectively communicate with whoever it is that you're dealing with.
I tell everybody that. Like if you're someone that's serious about settling down, you need to let them know from day one, like, this is what I want. If this is
Hmm.
not what you want, let me know so that I can keep
Getting
it pushing, you
scared.
can keep it pushing.
Yeah. I think a
Yeah.
lot of times we get scared of rejection or we get scared of like turning somebody off because we're like, oh, that's so serious.
Bye.
That's
If I
so
turn you
this.
off,
But
bye. You're not my
exactly, like if you
person.
scared,
Period.
if you
If you
scared, you can't
scared,
hang.
this ain't it. This ain't it. Bye. Nobody got time for that.
You
So
can't hold this down if you scared like that. But yeah,
facts. Okay. All right.
I feel like it's like I've always been kind of a relationship person, to be fair, because again, that's just kind of how I was raised and came up. Was
Yeah.
that you have like husband, wife, and y'all do
Yeah.
life. So
Yeah.
that's what I always was essentially trying to like navigate in all of my dating situations I was in, because pretty much most of my life I was in a long form kind of relationship with
Mm,
somebody. I never really put myself out there too much to do the casual dating thing, just because it was a little
yeah.
messy to me personally, especially
It
when
is.
you're a woman who's like a object of desire. Then you get targeted, and dudes
Yeah.
will have all types of weird agendas and put on all different types of masks and characters,
Mm,
all just to get what they want out of you. And it's honestly a very scary and kind of like predatory space to be in. And
yeah. I'm
again, you just
sure.
want to be able to protect yourself. You want to be able to meet somebody who's willing to like go that distance, willing to be honest, willing to
Yeah.
be just real and supportive, but also willing to like get outside of their comfort zone with you and grow
I
with you.
love that. I love that. Well, look, I'm gonna be praying that this current guy is your king, your husband that God sent for you. So sending good vibes and energy for that. But thank you for being a good sport. Last but not least, what does Dylan have coming up that we can follow and be a part of?
Well, I would say right now, what I want people to really follow and keep up with is really just my social media channels, like
Okay.
on Instagram, Dylan.Gonzalez, TikTok, The Real Dylan Gonzalez, and now YouTube, we're back up, Dylan.Gonzalez. But really just staying active on my social media channels, because that's where all of like the next rollouts of everything that we pretty much kind of disclosed here is going to start happening, with the music and the sports and the fashion and all these fun things that I got coming up that have been crazily
Yeah.
crazy to put together and to make happen. But I'm really excited. So I'm gonna be making all my announcements on there, and
Okay.
again, showing all the love to the people who are showing love back to me.
I love that. Well, we're gonna have to get a Dylan movie because again, I feel like you've been through a lot that people can
Really ain't
relate
lying.
to and you can inspire everybody. So I love this. I love this. I love you. Not,
I love you
I
too.
love this. I love you too. But no, I love the fact that you were able to be this vulnerable on this interview because a lot of people will not go as deep as you went and kind of reveal things that might be a little bit scary, right? For most people to kind of talk about. But again, the fact that you're able to do that, I know everybody watching, everybody that will be watching, be very inspired, and I can't wait to see what God does for you. So
A
thank
woman.
you. Look, so I appreciate again everything that you've done to this point for the next generation. And I know I said the last thing, but what I know you kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but if there's a little girl watching you right now and she's like, "Man, how can I do what Dylan has done? How can I get to that level?" What would you say to her?
I mean, you're only limited by that of your imagination. And
Mm,
when it comes to what you're ultimately going to choose to believe in, be very, very, very particular. Be very
mm,
specific, and don't feel the need to have to conform to other people's beliefs just because they try to convince you what's practical. Because what
Mm.
anybody else's opinion, or excuse me, all that anybody else's opinion is ever going to be is just a perspective from a vantage point of their own reality, not
Mm.
from your reality. So what you are capable of, they could never actually know
Wow.
because
That's
they are
deep.
not you. They are not living within the every fiber of your being down to its cellular, spiritual, molecular levels.
I
So
love that.
therefore, if you program your mind early to keep choosing the same thing over
Mm.
and over and over, even when you're challenged. And that's when you're going to know that
Yeah.
God or the universe or your higher power is trying to set you up to make your dreams come true, is when you get
Wow.
challenged. When you get
Wow.
challenged every step of the way with what your belief is. And it's when you drop that bar that you start
Mm.
experiencing delays or start feeling like, oh, it's not going to happen. Simply because of
Yes.
that. It's a
Yes.
very, very
Wow.
simple concept, but it is not easy. And in fact, even the most elite professionals today still have not mastered
Wow. Jeez. Gems. Gems dropped. So
it.
for everybody out there, I hope you take that in. I hope you utilize that. Again, thank you so much, Dylan, for your time. I know you're busy, busy, busy. So I appreciate you. And we'll be talking soon. I have to do a second interview with you once you drop your music because we definitely want to hear all about it and how it's going. But again, I appreciate your time and thank you.
Thank you so much for having
All right.
me. Have a blessed
Have a
one.
good one.